Good evening, everyone. I'm Jagrat, and thank you for joining us today. It's great to see so many of you here. I know weekday evenings are packed, so I appreciate you taking the time. As mentioned in the communication, today's topic touches almost every RWA at some point: tenant management. No matter how organized a community is, the tenant process somehow finds a way to get messy. Missing forms, unverified IDs, unclear move-in dates, endless back and forth approvals. It's a routine most associations struggle with. Over time, we have seen majorly two patterns emerge. In some societies, the process becomes so rigid that tenants feel unwelcome. In others, it's so relaxed that records are incomplete and compliance slips. Striking that balance, keeping it smooth yet structured, is where most committees get tested. And that's exactly what this session is about. How can RWAs simplify tenant management without losing control? What systems actually work on the ground? And how do committees ensure compliance without burning out their members? We are joined today by Mr. Venkat, Secretary at Satwa Greenwich, who's helped his association streamline the entire move-in, move-out process. Here's what we will cover over the next 30 minutes: how to design a clear, transparent tenant approval workflow that doesn't frustrate owners or tenants, what documents should actually be collected, why digital records matter for dispute resolution and compliance. If you have questions, there's a Q&A form in the chat. Drop them anytime and we will pick them up towards the end. We request you to keep the questions restricted to the topic of the day. In case we miss any of your questions, need not worry. Our guest will be answering it over WhatsApp chat later. So that's fine. Yes, Venkat, so let's start. Let's start at the beginning. When did you exactly start formalizing the tenant management process in your committee? If you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, sure, Jagat. Firstly, thanks to everyone for joining and taking the time out. Thanks, Jagat. And my name is Venkat. I am the secretary for Salapuria Greenwich, Satwa Greenwich, which is a large residential complex in South Bangalore. And I've been in this role for some time and been involved in moving modes from the start when we have designed this re-simplified and also automated. So I'm glad that there is an opportunity to share some of the best practices as well as some of the pitfalls, when we talk about creating a foolproof process and simplified as well. Sorry, go ahead, Jagrat.
So asking that, repeating my question again, when did you exactly start formalizing the tenant management process in your community?
Yeah. So I think this is when we took over from the builder. Until then, the builder was managing the the onboarding of different tenants or the owners as well. But when we took over the association, we found out that there are a lot of issues with the data, and most of the data is missing. There are hardly any documentation. There was no process as such, obviously. So I mean, early on we realized that a move-in process is the most important process for any association, because that's the only way you get quality data into your system. Okay, it could not just tenants, but it could also be owners. So designing the process, that's when we actually started debating on what should the right process look like. And it's about probably 6-7 years back that we actually completely revamped, created a new process for move-ins and move-outs. And eventually, for even the internal transfers, we are a large community of 1,700 flats. So we also needed a good process for internal movement of the people within the community from one flat to another. So even though all those were done just after we took over from the builder, the day-to-day management of the association.
Got it. Great to hear that. So now if you can get into the specifics of this process that you're talking about, what does the move-in flow, move-out flow actually look like today, from when an owner informs the committee to when a tenant actually gets access?
Yeah. So right now we have both online and offline processes. Online we run through Mygate, and offline we do have a form that people can download from our website greenwich.life, and then they'll be able to fill in the details and bring the form in. Offline process sometimes is also because people are a little reluctant to sometimes share data, or they are not very well versed with the app based uploading documents and so on. So we do have both processes. I think it's actually is helping us. The current process is that the first they fill in the form either offline or online. Then once we receive the form, we also, of course, they need to attach a lot of supporting documents, and we can talk about that. What documents, including the the photo IDs and ID proofs, as well as lease agreement and so on. The trigger essentially for us to process the form, though we receive the details, is that the owner must send a email to us from the registered email ID in Mygate or any other platform that a particular tenant is moving in. And then we should process their move in, and they can also attach the lease agreement, or it can also come from the tenant. That's fine. We insist on the registered email ID to avoid having any disputes later on who has actually sent the mail and so on, right? Over time, to the form we also added vehicles because that was being done separately. And then we, like you mentioned, how do we simplify the process for tenants? We thought that there should be one single form they need to fill in. Earlier, again, there used to be one form for vehicles and a separate form for actual move-in, and that's kind of creating a lot of friction in the process. Second, we added pets, and it's important that we collect the pet details. We also collect the pet vaccination records. So as part of the move-in, we also collect the pet details and as well as the vaccination records. And with support from Mygate, we got them added to the online app also. Now in Mygate app, we can also add the pet details as well as the vaccination records while they do it. So once we have the owner email to go ahead and do the move-in, as well as we have all the supporting documents, we go ahead and process the application today. So
Got it.
that's really the trigger. And more importantly, there are a lot of multi-tenant flats where, especially bachelors, each of the tenants have to go through the move-in process to be sure that we know who is actually getting into the apartment. So if it's a multi-tenant flat, then maybe one tenant is already living in one room, but then there's another tenant with a different lease agreement. They would go through the process once again. So once the entire process is complete, we make sure that their documents are verified. Then we share a security passcode with the tenant and with the front gate. And if they have any packers and movers coming in, they must give that passcode for the truck to enter. That's really the control we have today, how they enter.
Got it. And is the process a little different for move outs? Anything specific you want to talk about on that front?
Well, move outs, again, we have both on Mygate as well as offline. I think in Mygate, it's pretty simple. They just have to tag they are moving out, and then it's done. But if they are coming to do it offline, they have a small form to fill in. Of course, all dues must be cleared. So we do check. And then they also have to return any parking stickers. Initially, that's currently the similar process we have as move-in. Again, the owner sends a email to us from registered ID that the tenant's move out can be processed. So when we started, we did not have much control on whether they cleared the bills or not. But now I think we have a clear process in place to make sure that that is also sorted out. That's pretty much it.
Got it. So you've already spoken about how record keeping has smoothened the process and it has become more systematic. Could you also share an example or an anecdote, maybe a moment from this entire journey of systemizing the process where better tracking or documentation prevented confusion during a handover audit? This is just to make sure our audience has like a real life example of how these things pan out.
Yeah, so right now, we have one file for each flat wherein all the data goes in, so that we have a clear record of every flat, their history. It is important for multiple purposes. Sometimes the police come for investigation. In various cases, they expect us to keep a file of the all the records, so they can verify. And we had got into this issue before when they came in, they could not find all the data required. So we now create a proper record so that everything is on track. Sometimes people do internal transfers from within the community, but they don't move out from the current flat, so they can avoid the move out fees. They do the move in directly. But having proper record actually helped. We were able to find some incidents where they were already a tenant in an existing flat, and then they are applying for a move in another flat. So since we had the data, we were able to actually identify, make sure they do a proper move out in the current flat before they do moving, because you will have a problem later for the other flat when somebody else comes in. And this happened many times. So now we cross check to make sure they are not actually living already in Greenwich before they process the moving.
Makes sense. Got it. So, sir, most of the queries that we got regarding this webinar when we communicated about it was regarding payments. That seems to be the major roadblock in this scenario. So, on payments, what do you think are the most common challenges, especially tenant dues, and what systems or reminders or whatever processes that you've set in a society have worked best to keep collections regular for tenants?
Yeah. I mean, see, typically, I mean, whether who pays the dues is a question, right? Sometimes the tenants pay the dues, sometimes the owner pays the dues. As far as association is concerned, the unit should not have any dues. Okay. Whether the owner pays or the tenant pays is up to them to decide. And we do have some punitive measures. We can talk about that. The point where you have to check the tenant dues comes when they actually move out. That's when we need to be sure that they clear all their dues. When I say they clear all their dues, there are a lot of things. One is, for example, we have a library in our apartment. We do have a lot of amenities, party halls, and so on. So those dues have nothing to do with the owner. Okay. And they have to be cleared by the tenant. So we also track those, whenever they come out for to move out, we do check whether they have any library dues, whether they have any other amenity dues that they have not cleared before we go ahead and process their application. If they have dues, which are say maintenance dues, then we need a confirmation from the owner that they will clear the dues before we allow the move out. Because if the owner is not, so if the tenant is not clearing, then they should have an understanding that the owner will clear instead. Another very peculiar issue we found is when tenants leave in the middle of the month, right? Let's say they leave on 16th of the month, and then they have already consumed 15 days of gas, but then the invoice has not been raised. So these are the cases where you have to calculate pro rata and collect from the tenant. And this is typically we initially missed. And this is maybe for all associations to just take note, because later that we got into disputes with the owner. It's not my responsibility. You should have collected. Okay. So when we do some dues like gas and other things which are consumption based, you should calculate pro rata until the day of their leaving and then collect that before they leave. Which will actually have nothing to do with the owner. So clearly have a clear process, take a confirmation from the owner, and make sure that all the dues are properly calculated in pro rata some cases, and collect those from the tenant before you give out the passcode for moving out with the track.
Got it. So let's move towards conflicts, given that's the hot topic on most of the questions you've received. So have there been any cases regarding renewals or lease extensions? And maybe we can get into conflicts later. First, you can tell us, how do you track when leases are due for renewal, or how do you prevent last-minute surprises when tenants continue without updated agreements?
Yeah, I think we've not done it for some time in terms of storing and tracking lease agreements. We did not have a system, but recently I think last year we started using the Mygate for getting all the documents uploaded. At the time of move in, any case those documents do get into the platform. But even for the existing tenants, we have put it now mandatory that all the tenancy agreements are uploaded along with the start date and the end date for those agreements. So we have an option in the platform to be able to send out reminders, when the leases expire. So from time to time, our office actually sends those reminders to the tenants to make sure they upload. So as far as we are concerned, if we don't have a valid lease agreement, we can, um, uh, you know, um, uh, make the flat deemed unoccupied. Okay, so
Mm.
that's kind of what we tell the tenants. If you don't give the valid lease agreement, then as far as we are concerned, the apartment is not occupied.
Got it. Got it. So we've discussed lots of rules, and I'm pretty sure enforcing these rules you're talking about can be very tricky. So how do you ensure? I know you guys keep on sending reminders, as you mentioned again and again, but a lot of times there can be friction, which is a very unnecessary thing between owners, tenants, and the committee. So
Yes.
through your communications, how do you handle that? Given there are multiple people involved in this process and not just tenants.
Yeah. See, firstly, there has to be a policy clarity. There should not be any ambiguity in the process that you set for move-ins, move-outs. Second is simplify the form, and then you should only keep the details that are required. Typically, a lot of times what happens is associations feel that I should collect as much data as possible, not just about the tenant, even about the owner, about the flat. That kind of becomes a problem because tenants, when they come in, they don't have much detail even about who the owner is sometimes, right, except knowing the name probably and signing it. So how do we reduce friction? Keep the form essential to the details that are required, but not anything more, but collect all the details required. Have a clear, unambiguous policy for move-ins and move-outs, and make sure that you publish it in such a way that everybody is aware. So we have all our move-in, move-out, and all other processes, as well as all our policies on our website, greenage.life. And people, even the new tenants coming in, can check that before they come. Owners can check that. So everybody has same understanding of what the process is. That's the right way to avoid the friction.
Got it. Given so a lot of people listening to this webinar and who gonna maybe watch the recorded session later will be new RWA members who do not have experience of managing societies. So all the specifics that you talk about, if you can get a bit deeper into what are these policies that are published on a website, what are the documents that you were talking about, so that they also have an idea of setting up these processes in the community.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So see, when we started being an association in 2019 to today, and I've been there from the start, and maybe an year or two after the start, I see that the friction has reduced a lot over time between the owners and association, tenant and association, and owners and tenants. So over time, we have strengthened our code of conduct. So we have a pretty 40-50 page code of conduct that clearly lays out, what are the set of rules, what are the penalties, and that also is simplified a lot. We only kept to the essential. So that really is the first step for any RWA, new RWA. Create a absolutely foolproof and good code of conduct. Of course, each association it will be different, and of course it's a journey, and it's not the day one you will have everything right, because that will help a lot later. Okay, when you have tenant disputes, when you have and so on, right? Second is, like I mentioned, have a clear process for all these different things: moving modes, interiors, and internal transfers, vehicle registrations, pet registrations, whatnot, right? And everything, we have a neat form in place that will kind of make sure that people, that really helps a lot in terms of. Third is, see how and where you can automate. That's because you as an association have only limited bandwidth. Many of them have a daytime job to do, so you'll have to automate as much as possible and codify everything. And fourth point is, identify the control points, okay, and decide who will be enforcing those controls. So for example, going back to the tenant management, we found out that the main control we have is at the main gate. Okay, when they enter, if we are not able to control there what moves in, then we'll not be able to control who is actually coming into the society. So we have a clear process and the control that the security must have whoever is coming with a truck has a passcode. Whoever is not coming with a sticker has a clear entry, right? And that kind of catches a lot of things, before even it becomes an escalation. Okay. Fourth or rather fifth point is train the staff well, because we keep having new staff in our association, and then again a lot of times things fail. So make sure you train them well, and make sure all your people are aware of whatever policies you have. For example, we used to give a welcome docket when the new tenants come in. It's a 2-page document which tells everything about what they need to know. Okay. Including some important policies, penalties, and so on, so that tenants also sometimes are really not aware, right? But now you put all that new resident, onboarding or welcome docket on our website, greenage.life, and people go there and we send that link once the moment we know they are moving in, so they are also aware. So awareness is very critical to the owners and tenants. What are the processes, what they should follow? Okay, then that really helps, because sometimes a lot of things happen because people don't know what really are the rules of the society. So I would say these 5-6 points are very critical for any new RWA, which is kind of, and I'm talking a little bit closer to the rules and the tenant management, what they should put in place.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, sir, for summarizing these 5 points. I'm pretty sure they're going to help everyone. And finally, just to lighten the mood, given there is a lot of negative news on the internet on the tension between owners, tenants, biases against tenants, is there anything specific you do to help tenants feel part of the community, like including them in events, or giving them timely access to updates, or building a more open channel for communication with them vis-a-vis owners? Anything you would want to point at?
Yeah, a very interesting question and good question as well, right? Firstly, tenants in an apartment, we don't, except for voting in elections, attending the special general body meetings that we have, or AGM we have, we don't see tenants differently from owners. Okay, they are all residents for us. That's the first rule. Okay, except for areas where only owners have certain privileges, like as per your DOD or your bylaws, there are certain preferences, that is certain things the owners have in terms of voting. Those things, outside of that, for us, all residents are same. So residents, as residents, the tenants can do anything. They can raise complaints. They can complain about the association. They also can be part of the election committee. They cannot stand in the elections because they're not an owner, but they can be part of the election committee. A lot of owners don't live in the society, so they can give a power of attorney for the tenants to vote during elections. There's no such restriction that only owners should vote. So tenants can give both for elections as well as the AGM. They can give authority for a tenant to be part of it. Tenants can be part of the block committee, not the association committee, but they can be part of the committee for the block, and they can be part of any events. And we have some tenants who've been living for a long time. They like the society. They eventually become owners also, and they have contributed a lot to the community, even helping us as an association in setting up systems, events management, traffic management, so many other things, right? They have really helped. So absolutely no difference. We don't treat anybody different, except where the bylaws need the owners to be treated at a little higher level.
Got it. Cool, sir. So we will take the questions that we have received on the form. I can see 3 questions that we have received. Let me start with the first one. This is from Pratham Towers in Delhi. It says, In large societies like yours, how do you ensure consistency in the tenant process when committee members change? Is there a way to make the system less dependent on who's currently managing it?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to documenting our process and documenting the forms, and making sure that the process and the forms are approved by the current board. Because if one or two members rush and then create something, usually, maybe the next association comes, they'll have a completely different way of doing it. So what we do is that any changes to the process, or the current moving process, move out or anything, it gets voted and approved by the board. And typically we also share the resolutions that we have taken with the entire community, so they also know that such changes are happening. And then, of course, the documentation is clear. It's on a website, as well as on a Google Drive, where people can download all these documents. So since it's so with that process, it's a bit of a difficult for a new association to randomly change it, right? Unless there's a reason, because we kept transparent that these are the changes that have happened, and they're approved. It's documented well, and published.
Got it. Let's take the second question. This is from Kolkata. Some RWAs feel digitizing tenant management adds complexity for older tenants or residents or less tech-savvy owners. How did you get everyone on board and make the system easy enough for everyone to follow?
Yeah. So one is, we gradually implemented the change. It's not that on one day completely we migrated the platform. Second is, we have kept the physical process also on in parallel to the digital process, knowing that many are not comfortable. So that whoever was comfortable with the manual process, they can come to the office and do it. Third is that for those who are really, for example, not very well versed with the app, how to download the app and so on, how to use it, we did have some sessions with them to help support them, kind of get them familiar with using them. So all the three, I think, might help. Rolling out your digitization gradually, it's not like a big bang approach, so that people slowly adapt. Second is, have the both process in parallel run for some time. And third is that, try to have some trainings conducted, send them some links, some YouTube videos where they can watch how to do a move-in or do an interior check, using the app, how to pay their dues in the app. So eventually, many of them would adopt.
Got it. We have one more question from Delhi. It says, if a tenant violates society rules, what's the right escalation process? Should the committee deal directly with the tenant or only through the owner?
Yeah, so going back to what I said, anybody who enters our apartment, right, even visitors, have to follow a code of conduct, including the tenants, of course, as well as the owners. So when tenants do not, follow the rules, typically the kind of issues we see is late night parties, traffic. I mean, like parking in no parking zones. Common areas they're obstructing with something or other. People are not able to move in, move, or this one. Sometimes some graffiti, littering, and so on, right? But these are typically the issues. Then in those cases, I think we of course have a code of conduct. We do immediately send a communication to the tenant, which also goes to the owner, that this is the issue. For example, we had an issue where people had done a birthday, they had cake on all their faces, and they just jumped into the pool. Okay, just for fun, midnight. So it's a big issue, right? We have to completely clean the pool. It's a big expense. So keeping the owner in loop, we told the tenant on what are the kind of rules they have, this one, and what is the cost of correcting some of those. And then we charge the flat. Okay, because you can't charge tenant individually, we charge the flat. And of course, the owner needs to speak to the tenant to make sure that they clear any penalties.
Got it. Got it. I think that brings us to the end of the webinar. Thank you, sir, for sharing such practical insights. If there's one message to take away today, It's that tenant management does not need to be chaotic. When the process is clear, the roles are defined, records are centralized, it becomes predictable. And that's what every committee wants. For those who would like to visit any part of today's discussion, we will be uploading the webinar video on YouTube in a few days. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. Thanks again for asking such insightful questions. And thanks again, sir, for answering them so patiently. Here's wishing you fewer move-in surprises and smoother tenant transitions ahead. Good evening and namaskara, everyone.